Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to GW Center for Integrative Medicine Zoomcast/podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Kogan, Medical Director, Associate Professor of Medicine at GW in Geriatrics. And I have such a special pleasure today to welcome Elizabeth Eckstrom here today, Eckstrom, to our podcast. I'm going to introduce her in a minute, but she's a geriatrician like me, so it's a very, very special moment for me. I realized I actually have very few geriatricians on this channel. I need to remedy this immediately, so we're starting with you, Elizabeth, today. So, and the reason I decided to set up this with you is, of course, your study that just came out recently. We'll be spending a lot of time talking about it. I've been following your work for quite some time, but let's introduce our speaker today. So Dr. Eckstrom is a geriatrician and the Chief of Geriatrics in Division of General Internal Medicine and Geriatrics at Oregon Health Science University. I'm just going to say OSHU going forward, just easy that way. Yeah, it is. If I ever move somewhere, it'll probably be to work with you, Elizabeth, because you guys in such a wonderful state, and my kids love skiing, so it's a lot better, closer to good slopes. So she's a co-director of OSHU Health Aging Alliance. She's been teaching and seeing patients for a very long time. She and her team is really working hard on improving quality of care at OSHU for all older adults, not just the ones admitted to the hospital, but also to a local community. And she's been doing research on healthy lifestyle in older adults with a very specific accent on researching effects of Tai Chi and its benefits, and that's what we're going to talk a lot today. Elizabeth is also an acclaimed author, so she is co-author of an amazing recent book, which I think everybody should get, called The Gift of Aging, Growing Older with Purpose, Planning and Positivity. The book was just published in June this year. Well, actually, sorry, in June of last year. I forgot. We're in 2024 already. It's good. A good reminder. Today's January 4th. Yeah. So, and the book was published by Cambridge University Press. You can find it on Amazon. I'll make sure we have a link to it, and we'll talk about the book. And this book is following the critically acclaimed first book, which was The Gift of Caring, and it was a winner of 2016 National Christopher Award. The new book, The Gift of Aging, blends frontline science with inspirational stories and insights from wise elders for aging with health, joy, and purpose. You know what the funny thing is? We were supposed to have an Oxford University Press publish our age-wise book, and they dropped us. And so now we're like figuring out what to do with the book. But I realize now, listening to your book, is almost the same book as mine. So I was like, maybe it's a good thing that my book didn't come out in summer this year. So there's no overlap. Anyway, let's go back to your introduction. So the book demonstrates ways we can significantly increase our chances for a positive aging experience into the 8th, 9th, and 10th decade. And it offers key strategies for meeting the challenges of aging, informs us of issues of inclusion and equity, and advises on handling legal and financial affairs. The Gift of Aging illustrates how we can make the third act of our lives meaningful and fulfilling, ensuring we as elders can make a difference in our world. And of course, as I already mentioned, Dr. Eckstrom is a very accomplished researcher. In fact, actually, that's how I got to know you, Elizabeth. I've been following some of your research on Tai Chi for quite some time, just because I'm so interested in Tai Chi and been practicing it myself for a long time. So the most recent study that was just published in Annals of Internal Medicine, and I got to ask you how you got that fit accomplished, because that's like one of the top journals in the world. So the article titled "Clinical Effectiveness of Cognitive Enhanced Tai Chi Chuan Training on Global Cognition and Dual Task Performance During Walking in Older Adults with Mild Cognitive Impairment or Self-Reported Memory Concerns, a randomized control trial." And personally, I'm super excited, not just because Elizabeth is geriatricians, but also because we've co-presented in the past at the American Geriatric Society, and I have this vivid memory when you were giving, we presented together, but you also gave like a keynote for the whole auditorium. And there were like, I don't know how many, 3,000 of us geriatricians. and you got up, all of us got up in the middle of it, and we did a couple of movements, and I was like, okay, the world is changing towards lifestyle interventions in our field of geriatrics. It was very like, I don't know, like very, very, tearing up moment for me, because, I've been talking about this forever, but AGS is a big organization, a little bit slow. And so it was just so great to see you doing this. So with that, welcome so much. And let's jump right in. First question, what drew you to geriatrics?
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here, and quite an honor to be part of your getting the word out there on so many topics in lifestyle medicine and how we can age well. And I came to geriatrics in a little bit of a roundabout way, and it was a lot through healthy aging and through exercise. I started my own research career many years ago, thinking about how to get older people with multiple chronic conditions out and active on a more regular basis. And so I wasn't a geriatrician yet when I started that, but over doing that study and then a few more and getting into Tai Chi, I just realized that there are so many things that we are not doing a great job with our older patients with. And if you can get somebody exercising well, doing Tai Chi, eating a healthy diet, sleeping well, getting off of dangerous pills, all of those kinds of things, you don't have to spend all of your time talking about their diabetes and their congestive heart failure, because they just get under control if everybody's kind of doing the right lifestyle thing. So I've been a real advocate for healthy lifestyle, doing lifestyle medicine, since I began my career back in the mid-90s, which ages me, I'm sure, dates me. And then, of course, it's the stories. I mean, I think anyone who's a geriatrician will tell you that just caring for older people is the most amazing thing. They've had these interesting lives, and they can just tell you how the world has evolved. And it's so eye-opening to see and just kind of see how they manage their aging process, and helping people have the older life and even the death that they were hoping to have is incredibly rewarding. So I love it, but I particularly love it when I can help people become healthier with their lifestyle practices, and then have a really successful late life and end of life.
I hope some of our trainees will watch this video, and I always say, yeah, we may be the least paid doctors, but we're the happiest ones.
So true.
I mean, I think we interact with this wise old elders, and we learn from that. And then really, that's what draws us. I mean, what draws us realization that we'll get there, and we can learn early, and we can learn positively. And I think it's actually one thing when we'll get to talk about the book, which I really love, how the entire book is structured towards this kind of a positive aging, away from aging as a disease, which I don't think we're going to talk about this today, but there's a lot going on, and you and I can spend a whole podcast about discussing that, because there's a whole push in some parts of our healthcare field, or biohacking, whatever we're going to call it, or anti-aging, just to say that, and we as geriatricians trying to say, whoa, that's not necessarily the best thing. So your OSHU practice, I've actually never visited you guys. So tell us a little bit about, like, you probably have very comprehensive practice. So how does it look?
Yeah, so we've got a really primary care based model where geriatricians are kind of woven into the fabric of primary care. We felt like we wanted everybody who does primary care at OHSU to understand how to be a really good care provider for older adults. And of course, there aren't enough geriatricians for every older adult to have a geriatrician. So our goal is to help ensure that all of our primary care colleagues are really good at caring for older adults. So it's this very comprehensive program. We do a lot of work with the age-friendly health system, which is a really simple but unique model it's called the 4 M's, where we focus on these 4 very simple things for aging, which number 1 is what matters, what's most important to you as you age, and how do I, as your healthcare provider, help you meet those goals. Medications, making sure they aren't on a lot of risky meds, mentation, managing cognitive complaints, complaints, checking for depression, those kinds of things. And then lastly, mobility. So are you, do you have safe mobility? Can you get around your home okay? Can you get to the grocery store okay? Is there a risk for falling or something like that? And of course, that's where the Tai Chi specifically fits in. But I think Tai Chi fits into most of the categories because it's so meditative. And now with our newest study, it really shows that it has the cognitive benefits at all as well. So I think that it's a nice way to interpret lifestyle medicine in the context of something that's much more kind of systematic and the 4 M's of age-friendly health. But that's what we focus on a lot, and we try to do work to ensure that we're weaving equity through all of our age-friendly health system components and make sure that all older adults have access to age-friendly care, even if there are barriers in various ways. So we work very hard on that, and yeah, it's a great practice. We have an inpatient team that works throughout the hospital. We of course have people who are working in long-term care. It's just somewhat typical of a geriatrics comprehensive care program, but it's really fun and invigorating, and we have lots of great faculty, and it's we would welcome you joining us. Just let me know when you want to come and interview.
Well, I think I have to wait for kids to fly out of the house, but who knows? I do love Oregon. I'll tell you that. Well, you kind of already started segueing into Tai Chi. And you've done this research for a very long time. So maybe, and we definitely don't have time to cover all of it, and I want us to concentrate on the recent study, but maybe walk us a little bit back and talk a little bit about some of the key aspects of your research you've done over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. So our Tai Chi work started in right around 2000, and our first emphasis was on fall prevention. So our first randomized trials showed that there's at least a 50% reduction in falling if you do Tai Chi. And doing Tai Chi means about an hour, 2 to 3 days per week. You don't have to do it every single day. And those studies were really positive. And do we have time for a story? Can I tell you a story?
We absolutely have. Hold the story. I want to make sure that our listeners get this. So you said an hour up to 3 times a week. So that will basically add up to about 3 hours a week. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's what I've heard before. And I just want to be clear, because there's often a lot of kind of misunderstanding. Some people think that you have to do an hour a day. Some people think you can do 30 minutes once a week and it'll be okay. There is this kind of expected minimum, right? That's the minimum. So basically ends up to about 30 minutes a day, plus minus 20.
Yep. Yeah, the dosage, if you will, is probably that 2 to 3 hours per week. And yeah, I think the studies where they did it less frequently probably didn't show as much benefit, but doing it more frequently doesn't necessarily add benefit. I mean, it might add benefit for other things like sleep or depression treatment or things, but it's kind of the threshold at about 2 to 3 hours per week. But so
all right, story.
So my story is, and this was from our very first randomized trial of Tai Chi, and I was so excited about it. And so I would go down to the recruitment center and, see how our team was recruiting people and just, say hi to people. Why did you decide you wanted to be in this study? What made you come in and try it out? Because I mean, this was 25 years ago. There wasn't that much Tai Chi in Portland, Oregon back then. And so as I was watching, so there was kind of this hallway coming down to the place where the desk was set up where we were recruiting people. And through the door walks this man that I thought had to be absolutely ancient. And he comes through the door and he's got a walker and he's got an oxygen tank. And he's like slowly walking down this hallway with his walker and his oxygen tank. And so my first thought was, oh, he's got to be too old. We actually had a pretty old cutoff. I think it was something like 92, which was pretty old for back then. And I said, he's got to be too old. And so he keeps walking along and he gets there says his name, and I think he was only 89, so he was still in our age range. And so then I was just saying to myself, oh, please get randomized to sit and stretch. Please get randomized to sit and stretch, because I was worried he was going to get hurt during our Tai Chi. And so of course he gets randomized to Tai Chi, right? And so I went over to him afterwards and I said, sir, can you be really careful during Tai Chi? And he goes, oh, you don't want me to break my hip, do you? And I said, correct. We don't want to have a major injury during our Tai Chi program. And who knows if I was biasing our study by telling him that. But anyway, I did. And so he said, okay, I'll be careful. So I went to the first class that he was doing Tai Chi, and I saw that the instructor had literally taken a roll of duct tape and taped his walker to the floor. And then they wrapped the oxygen cord in duct tape so that the oxygen cord was not like, loose on the floor, but was kind of taped up the walker and then to his nose. And so he did his first Tai Chi. He was standing, sometimes I'll have people sit first, but he started standing, but he was holding on to that walker and, just like moving one leg or moving one arm and just, being really careful. But the fun part of the story is at the end of the 6 months, guess what?
Off the walker, off oxygen.
Off the walker, off the oxygen. So 6 months, and I don't think he missed a single class. This guy was on it. And so at the end of the 6 months, he didn't need the walker and he didn't need the oxygen anymore. And he said, I've gotten a whole new life. You've like taken 20 years off my life, and I'm a new person. So I think, that really showed me the power of Tai Chi and what it can do for us. And so I've always been a big advocate and really try to get all of my patients to do Tai Chi.
I think the stories like that, they just stay with you for the rest of your life. You just, you can't let go of this. It's such a power. And, when we know the history, we know the history of this art. It goes back thousands of years ago and being perfected. And who are we, with our few hundred years of evolution of our healthcare system to say to the 1,000-year-old tradition where it works?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any question about it. So let's kind of go right into this most recent study. I think when I was reading, I was like, oh my God, because, well, first of all, how did you came up with this? Well, let's just slow down. Just tell the listeners a little bit about the study. I just want this come from you instead of me saying anything.
Absolutely. So we've been doing Tai Chi for fall prevention, and we've been randomizing people to Tai Chi for a number of studies now, including Parkinson's disease. Make sure all of your Parkinson patients are doing their Tai Chi. And that one got published in the New England Journal of Medicine. So that was a fun study. But in the study that got published in 2018 in JAMA Internal Medicine, it was still around fall prevention. But I said to our team, I said, you know what, let's just do MOCA tests on them. Let's just do a cognitive test on people. And it wasn't a primary outcome of that study. It was just, one of our secondary outcomes, but we just, decided to see what it might, what Tai Chi might do for cognition. And in that study, MOCA scores did go up after the study. And those weren't necessarily people who had cognitive impairment to begin with. So a MOCA score going up when it's already maybe in the normal range, 25 or 26 or 27, still going up closer to 30 is a really good thing, right? And so that led us to say, okay, there's got to be something here. And so my partner, Fuzhong Li, who actually is the real Tai Chi expert, he's the one who, develops all of the moves and the order and, takes the...
He's your Tai Chi master who teaches.
Right, exactly. So he was the one who said, I think we can actually add some cognitive enhancements to this. So, and it's almost the same. It's kind of as simple as, walking and talking, right? You're using your body, but you're also using your brain. And that's one of the benefits of Tai Chi in the first place, is that it's mind-body combination. You're not just exercising your body, you're exercising your brain simultaneously. So it works on balance and posture and gait, but it also works on, mind-body stability and really enhancing your ability to perform functions in a kind of structured way. So it improves executive function. People planning ability is one of the key features of Tai Chi that is a benefit for cognition. It improves attention, it improves memory, all of these pieces because of having to learn all of these moves, execute them correctly in the right order, and getting the exercise of the positional stability of the Tai Chi itself and the core strengthening that you're getting from the Tai Chi itself. I know you know all this, but I'm just telling it for your audience. Some of it's really simple. I mean, just doing your Tai Chi moves and, counting backwards by threes or something, so there's no rocket science to it. It's something that anyone can do every day, and you don't have to necessarily have some specific program, but we hope that we'll be able to get our program out there so that Tai Chi instructors can use these cognitive enhancements in their Tai Chi classes. But I want everybody to walk away thinking that they don't have to do my exact class that has, Fu Zhang's exact cognition enhancers in it. You can just do things that force you to be really, cognitively enhanced, doing just like if you've got a Tai Chi instructor who's doing the moves one way, if you force yourself to do the moves the opposite way, instead of mirroring that person, they're doing it with one leg, you do it with that same leg or the other, just so that it's not exactly the same thing. That's
challenging, basically, cognitively.
Right. Exactly. It's making it harder for your brain to do it. So you don't just get into the smooth, especially after you've done it 100 times, the moves perfectly. Okay, now do them opposite, right? And that makes it hard again. But just all of the things that can force your brain to work even harder while you're doing the body function of the Tai Chi and the positional control and all of those graceful movements that you're doing when you do Tai Chi. So we did this study, and then we thought, well, we've done our studies in people who have fairly normal cognition. Let's see what happens with people who maybe are starting to have some cognitive complaints. Maybe it's even better to do Tai Chi in people who are already starting to notice that their memory isn't as good as it used to be, or they're starting to worry that they're having some cognitive complaints. So the people in this study either had subjective memory complaints or they had mild, truly diagnosed mild cognitive impairment. And so with that group of people, again, similar to our last trial, we showed an improvement with regular Tai Chi. They improved about 1.5 points. But the people who did this cognitively enhanced Tai Chi improved their MoCA score by about 3 points, or double the regular Tai Chi, which is a pretty good improvement. And if you just think about Tai Chi, or just think about cognition in general, once people start to have some cognitive decline, typically their MoCA score will go down by about 0.5 per year, or every year you lose about, on average, 1 point on your MoCA test. So if I give you back 3 points on your MoCA test, that's kind of 6 years of additional cognitive ability, right?
Probably a lot more than that, actually, because top that decline is slower. When I was reading the study, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is like, why is this not screamed at every corner? Because if this would be a drug, it'll be like FDA approved tomorrow. Like, just to compare to this recent biologic drugs that FDA approved, the Adelheim, for example, like they simply changed the decline by something like 0.25 MoCA score per year. They changed the decline, they slowed down slightly. Here you had 3-point gain in 6 months. It's like, you can't even compare these things in reality.
Yeah.
So what do you think is happening here? I mean, you and I get a good sense that, Tai Chi itself is such an important cognitive enhancement, but clearly the cognitively enhanced Tai Chi is much, much better. So you stumbled upon a brand new process. Should we standardize this somehow so that there is are you guys planning on creating training programs? Because it sounds like there's a gem here. There's some pearl here that we should
Yeah.
share with everybody.
Well, I think more research needs to be done. You know, we're doing more trials on people with maybe even a little bit lower MoCA scores to start, and you know, just trying to sort out, is this for real, right? It seems too good to be true.
Right.
We need to kind of validate it, and but back when we did our original Tai Chi work, we did set up trainings, and we have master trainers really across the country now. So our, Tai Chi or Tai Chi Chuan, moving for better balance, it got the more official term attached to it a few years after the first study came out. We have been doing trainings. We continue to do trainings, and have received funding to do some of those trainings around the country for people. So absolutely, I think that's what should come next, and we should really help ensure that Tai Chi instructors and Tai Chi masters have the ability to think through how to incorporate this into their classes, into their practice, into how they're using Tai Chi with their audience, so that everybody can have these additional cognitive enhancements. And there are quite a few. If you kind of read the list in the study, there were quite a few cognitive enhancements to the study. We don't know if you have to do them all. Are there like 3 things that are the most effective and you should be doing those? Or, so there's still a lot of refinement to be done. But I think the key feature is that really, if you can add some brain stimulation into the already high level of brain stimulation you're getting from the Tai Chi itself, you're going to have the improvement in your cognition, and it lasts. When we followed people beyond the 6 months, the cognition improvement, it didn't go back to 0. It stayed. But of course, we tell everybody, once you get started, please don't stop. Don't be in a research study for 6 months and then quit doing Tai Chi. You got to stick with it, because it'll help you for so many things.
Yeah, I love how in this age-wise, thousands of years old traditions, like yoga is the same. They don't call this exercise, it's a practice, right? And then there's a reason why they say that word, because it's a lifelong endeavor. You don't just start and do it for a few months and stop.
Yeah, and you start with your kid. I think if we shouldn't just be talking about Tai Chi for people over 70, which is what our studies are. We should be getting it into the schools. We should have it be intergenerational, where kids are doing it with their grandparents, and just really, really try to change the culture.
Is anybody doing that? Is anybody in the country trying to do intergenerational work?
Not that I'm aware of. I talk about it with people. I would love to figure out a way to, who's going to fund that? NIA, whoever the child development is.
This whole thing brings me to the next point. What do you think of Medicare and getting somehow involved here? You and I would both work with a lot of dual eligible with patients who have Medicare and Medicaid, and some of them really can't afford $10 class. And I know some places do it for free now, but there's still this kind of a problem with the access to teachers in the community who need to get paid. They need to have a living. Yeah. What do you think of these things? Like, what's the, outside of having aging centers where it's for free, what other ways people can access it? And I know Medicare is not covering, but is there a movement to get it covered?
Yeah, so it is covered in some places, and it's under the Medicare Advantage program. So again, maybe not accessible to everyone, but if you have a Medicare Advantage program and you have silver sneakers, there are a lot of gyms that offer Tai Chi. So you can choose to go to a Tai Chi class through your Medicare Advantage program. Now, of course, the whole country doesn't have that. We're in Oregon, where everybody likes to think that our little
we don't have that here.
Yeah. So, we can talk about trying to spread that. I think that, I would love to see the PACE program really take it up, which is the dual eligible program and, to host Tai Chi classes at the PACE centers. I don't even think our PACE centers have it yet. And I guess I need to get out there and start lobbying for, for having.
Good reminder for me, we just got a PACE set up through GW. And so I'm going to have to talk to them and say, hey, get our Tai Chi teacher to work with us.
But also in long-term care settings, there are a lot of people living in assisted living, in memory facilities. And, we've gone out and trained a bunch of activities coordinators to be Tai Chi instructors, and so that they can offer this for their long-term care residents in who are living in.
You think that's okay? Like, you think that somebody does not have to be like Tai Chi master to teach? Like, you can take some. That's important. Yeah, because I think there is kind of, I often hear this from Tai Chi world side that like they're very purist. They like our way or highway, and they're like, you gotta be studying with a master. And I keep always saying that's just, it's not going to work for a long time, because we need to implement the whole country process. So that's good. So you've been training just like a they're not art therapists. I think they're, what are they called? The
activities coordinators. Yeah. And so so Fujian's been the master of all of this. He's done a lot of the dissemination work, but he's had funding from the CDC to train Tai Chi instructors, and he's still doing it. And it's like a 1 8-hour day. And then I think there's like a 4-hour refresher. And after that, people can go out and teach these fairly simple Tai Chi classes that he developed and that we've been doing in our studies. And so we have people teaching Tai Chi classes in churches, in even in jails, kind of all. We even, when we've done some fall prevention work, like we'd go out to rural Oregon and, train healthcare teams on how to do fall prevention. And then Fuzhang's team would train some Tai Chi instructors in that rural community who could then do it at their local gym or their local church, or, wherever they want to do Tai Chi. So yeah, we've tried to make this like, you do not have to be a master. You take this one fairly simple training and then just start doing it. The good news is that the risks of Tai Chi, if you start gently, and I always say, try it in a chair the first time. If you start gently, don't progress too fast, the risk of injury is extremely low. And even people who are very old and quite frail can do it and then gradually get better and better. And of course, you do have to do it for at least 3 to 6 months before you start to notice the benefits. So you got to stick with it for a while. But it's a very safe practice. And that, everybody says, hey, how come there's no yoga that has this kind of evidence behind it? You were probably going to ask that question. When I talk with people in the yoga world, they're like, well, it's just not quite as safe. It's a little bit easier to have a wrist injury from downward dog or, whatever. Well,
my 14 years old, I do yoga once a week or twice a week. So my 14-year-old was joining me in this class, and he like torqued his neck, and he's 14. Like, imagine somebody will do this at 90, and instead of torquing, they'll break it. So yeah, I think that's really the core, is that we see a lot more injuries from yoga than I've never seen an injury from Tai Chi. I probably see injury from yoga in the practice every 3 to 6 months. Not kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, no, this is right. So another quick question on Tai Chi. So you guys, it's a modified 24 style, right? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it's really only 8 forms.
Oh, so it's a shorter form. Okay. And so you basically studying the same protocol for all these years, and you're just slightly modifying it now, adding this cognitive thing. So I just want to, just to people who are purists, the Tai Chi can be like dauntingly complicated. Like especially if you go more towards like Kung Fu and there's a whole bunch of other forms. But this is quite basic, and yet it's still profoundly effective. And I just want to make sure that everybody's clear. It's a practice, and if you do it on a regular basis and continuously, there is this impact. So any other insights? So in terms of just the basic clinical recommendations, so you would see a patient. I know you prescribe Tai Chi to every single one of your patients. I got to catch up. I probably prescribe it to only half of my patients, but maybe I should prescribe it to everybody. But you basically have a network. So you would see a patient and you say what?
So oftentimes I'll actually pull up one of our videos on YouTube. So Tai Chi for Better Balance, when the instructor comes on and I say, here's what it looks like. What do you think? Do you think you could try this? Does this look like something you could do? And I say, you know, if you want to just as a starting point, just, you know, pull up the video at home and try it. There's like a 7-minute sitting one, and then there's a 12-minute standing one. You can kind of, you know, learn how to do a little bit just like that. And but then I say, but then let's help you find a class. And a lot of our community centers do have our Tai Chi program because we've trained so many people in Oregon on our Tai Chi program. So then I say, you know, you're pretty close to the Hollywood Senior Center. Let's have you go do Tai Chi classes at the Hollywood Senior Center twice a week or 3 times a week. And then you can supplement maybe with the, you know, the 12-minute standing video on the other days, just so you can kind of, you know, keep getting better at it. So you look good in front of the class when you go there. And I'll say, you know, just try it in a chair first. And then when you come back and see me next time, let's talk about how it went and see if you've been able to progress. I say, you know, sitting in a chair. And then after you're feeling pretty comfortable with that, then try standing up, but hang on to the chair. So as you're, you know, doing the moves, maybe one hand is on the chair, or, you know, you can grab the chair if you need to. And as they kind of progress in their ability to do the forms, they progressively become independent and can do it freestanding. And so, and it's amazing. People who are, you know, 95, 96, 98, who were, you know, basically very frail, can gradually get to the point where they can do standing Tai Chi without any assistance. And it's people are really proud of themselves when they can do this, because it's quite an accomplishment. And then obviously they say, wow, I would have probably tripped and fallen on that curb, but now that I have Tai Chi, I was able to catch myself, because, you know, the movements of Tai Chi are basically giving yourself a broader framework of stability, so you can get off kilter and still kind of catch yourself much more readily after you've been doing Tai Chi for 3 to 6 months. And so they start to get this positive feedback of, wow, 6 months ago that would have been a fall, you know, I might have broken my hip, but now I was able to not fall. So it's a very rewarding process.
So we'll make sure that we have the links. So we'll make sure that those videos are available for listeners to check in. So, well, we still have time, but we need to move on. So because I want to spend time for you to talk about your book. So it just came out, as I was mentioning in introduction. And by the way, it is available on Audible. That's about the only way I read the books nowadays. So I'm about halfway through. Love how you guys open up with the blue zones and kind of move out of blue zones, out of this, you know, we have a history of blue zones, and this is how you position it. And it's very, very practical book. It has a lot of examples, like the stories on, like, I remember this 96-year-old calligrapher story, amazing. Like, you know, so I think we forget often that, you know, especially in our practice, we often would see a person who's kind of very old and frail and doesn't have that vibrancy. But really, the goal should be those cases of vibrancy that we all see. So tell us sort of your favorite part of doing the book, how it came to be, and maybe a story. I don't know, maybe not the calligrapher story, but some other story.
Yeah, so I have to say, Lucille, the calligrapher, now is 102, and she's still doing calligraphy.
Wow.
and she comes to our book readings because, you know, she just loves the book and loves what we've been able to do with it. So she's awesome. So, you know, it came a lot out of the sense that people would come to see me as a new patient, and they would just feel this despondency around, oh, I'm getting older, I'm going downhill, I'm declining, I saw my mom get dementia, I feel like it's going to happen to me too. And, you know, maybe they're still only 75 and pretty healthy and doing okay, but they're just everything about aging feels scary and threatening to them. Like, you know, there's no hope left, sort of thing. And so Uh, and I said, that's not how it has to be. You know, you can still have so many positive things as you get older. And so we decided to collect these stories of people who are really, truly aging well, and, you know, include stories of people who have continued to have purpose and continue to do things they love to do. And, you know, like the 96-year-old rabbi who continues to teach internationally. He's doing podcasts and webcasts and teaching classes. He lives in Portland, but he's teaching classes in Israel. I can't imagine what time of night he has to be doing this teaching. You know, and you know, just maintaining purpose. And I love the part of his story. He you know, didn't understand why there's so much why it's so hard for some of the different religions to understand each other and kind of get along. So he was teaching classes that had Jews and Arabs and Christians all in the same class, and, you know, talking about the three different religions and how, you know, each of them is actually pretty similar to each other. And, you know, so many of the tenets around morality and kindness and joy and happiness, you know, all of the things that, all of the good parts of religion. So, you know, why is the world, you know, decomposed into something that's so much more stressful? And so, you know, his story is just awesome for, you know, his ability to kind of take this really broad view and keep up his teaching into very old age. And then we had the 106-year-old who's still volunteering. She goes to the grocery store every week, and she said, I have to walk every day so that I'll be strong enough to shop at the grocery store for 2 whole hours. And she puts together the grocery carts, and some of this was in COVID. So, you know, she's going in her mask at special older adult hours when it won't be crowded, and then, you know, leaves the stuff at the curb, and a younger person drives it out to that homebound person to give them their groceries. I mean, just the stories of people who have continued to thrive, continue to give. I think, you know, one of the big themes of the book is that people who are successful as they age are continuing to give back. So many of our older patients feel like, and older adults in general, feel like they don't have anything more to give, or the world doesn't want what they might have to give anymore. So this sense of purpose and avoiding the social isolation and staying engaged in your community, all of these things are really high points throughout the book. And I hope it's giving others, you know, the ability to look around them and say, wow, I could be involved here, I could do more here. And, you know, just giving people the confidence and the, you know, the desire to get out and do more things to kind of help them with their healthy aging. And then, of course, there are tons of tips about how to improve your cognition and, you know, all of the exercise stuff and Tai Chi and all of, you know, Met diet and everything.
I love how easy it is to listen to it and read it, I guess, too. I mean, I don't know. I listen to it. It's very, it's written in a great language. So just want to highlight that for everybody. It's very entertaining also. It's very like catchy.
Thank
So
you.
I tend to listen to the books. If my motto is, if I can listen to a book in a car, it's not a good book. So,
right.
Well, but book is also quite serious. I mean, I think the book highlights something that in this society in US, you know, there are two problems, in my opinion, that are massive. So one is, you just pointed out, the lack of purpose. We sort of associate purpose with our jobs or with our money making, or, you know, supporting a family. But in reality, purpose is much greater than that. I think the book highlights that in so many different ways, and kind of positions it in such a positive light that I really love. The issue, I think, is even more important. This society holds on to the youth as if there is nothing else matters. And I kind of find that disheartening, you know, like I'm in my career, right? I'm kind of much closer than you to this whole world of functional medicine, integrative medicine. So people like Mark Hyman, Peter Attia, you know, and like the book that Mark, is it a Mark who put out book, The Younger You, or was it a Fitzgerald? I like them all, but the whole principle there is no, stay younger. And the reality of what you're saying, that's not actually what happens. we have to embrace the change and we have to adapt to it before it happens, because by that time, if it happened and you didn't adapt to it, you will have catastrophes.
Yep.
And I want to make sure that listeners really understand that, because I think a lot of people who listen to our podcast are really in that age where they understand it. And I think your message is so crisp clear that the people who tend to be really aging well are not the ones who's going to say, I'm going to be driving until I'm 110. No, it's people who think about this ahead of time and say, it's okay, I'm going to let go. I'll have somebody else do this for me. And I will do other things. I'll adapt. I'll still have important things I love to do. I'll still have a lot of things I love doing. They may not be the things I was doing 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and that's okay. And I see that actually, I don't know if you see a lot of those patients, but I see a lot of patients like this who really have a hard time letting go, realizing that they can't ski at age of 70 and they probably should do, or horse ride, that maybe they need to start transitioning to Tai Chi.
Yep.
But reflect on this a little bit. I mean, I know that the big portion of the book is centered around it, but maybe just in your own words, like, what are the lessons that you can share with the listeners?
Yeah. Well, the first one is that having a positive attitude towards aging is a starting point. And being positive about your own aging can add 7.5 years to your life. So just being positive about it. And why is that? Well, probably because if you have a positive attitude towards aging, you are exercising more, you are eating a healthier diet, because you're planning, you're preparing for your older self, and you're preparing for doing as best you can as you get older. So that positive attitude is really important. But it's also this notion that you're not just trying to look down this tunnel of 20 years of, not accomplishing things. And you already mentioned that so many people, their self-confidence and their self-esteem is tied to whatever they did as a job, or, how much money they made. And so, one of your jobs is that you have to recreate yourself and recreate your self-esteem without the need for it to come from a job. You have to recreate it around the success you have helping to raise a grandchild, or the success that you have supporting, a community garden, or something that is, very different from that business world job, high-powered job you might have had at a younger age. So having a positive attitude and really being able to rethink what matters in life, and how do I find joy? And again, back to Josh the rabbi said, you don't find joy by going out and looking for it, by, traveling or doing things. You find joy by giving back. You find joy by helping others find joy. And so really having that attitude, and lots of people do have that attitude. They're very involved in their grandkids, they're very involved in their community, but there are a lot of people who have had a life centered on more, themselves, making money, having a bigger house, whatever. And now you have to, it's a fairly big shift to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to find my joy, or I'm not going to have my purpose through this high-powered job I had, but it's going to be through helping our community have a community garden, so people can have, in an underserved area, have more fresh vegetables when they live in a food desert or something. So it's a huge shift. I mean, really big reframing of who you are, and what things are accomplishments. But I think everybody has to go through it. If you don't, you're not going to have a successful older life. You're not going to die peacefully, because you just, feel like everything's behind you, and you're just despondent, and you become frail, and then you're stuck in a wheelchair, and everything goes downhill.
Such a powerful message. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I think we're about to finish up. Before I let you go, anything you want to bring up? Anything we didn't talk about? Maybe what you're aspiring in research going forward?
Yeah, well, there's certainly lots more to do with understanding how to get everybody doing Tai Chi, right?
That's true.
And you know, part of it, of course, is that a lot of providers, you know, doctors, nurse practitioners, even physical therapists don't always understand that, you know, they need to be encouraging people to do the Tai Chi. So you know, there's lots of ways to think about how to disseminate this information more broadly. And I'm really excited about the possibility of having it get out there more broadly. And then, of course, I think that I just want to leave everyone with the message that, you know, whatever age you are, it is time to start planning. Like, so many people are just afraid. They try to push it under the rug, and then they get to 84 and something happens, and there's no backup plan for the fact that they're no longer safe to live in their house. And so starting that planning early, you know, started in your 30s, 40s, 50s, figure out what it's going to look like when it's no longer safe for you to continue driving. Think about what it's going to look like if something happens to you where your family's not capable of caring for you on their own. What are the other options that you need to be able to consider and then, you know, start to save up for? And I think all of those pieces are incredibly important. And I'll just finish by saying that notion of a positive attitude towards your future self and those extra 7.5 years you're giving yourself of good aging and healthy aging is really worth it and really valuable.
Yeah, find that purpose and continuously redefine it. Like I remember I think it's the same case if you're with the calligrapher. I mean, finding the beauty in art, finding a way of expressing yourself, even when physicality of your mechanical movements may not be as great as they used to be, I think is really the essential. Well, Elizabeth, thank you. So this was Dr. Elizabeth Eckstrom, MD from OSHU, geriatrician, Chief of Geriatrics. Absolute pleasure. Wish we could have another hour, and maybe we will. When your next study comes out, we'll bring you back. I'll make sure all the links are in the description, including the study, including, I'm definitely going to ask you for those YouTube videos. I think it'll be really good. Everybody have a new year. If you like this podcast, do subscribe. I always forget to say that in the opening, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.